You're welcome, dear students, to yet another exciting topic, the second in the series of CRP 304. And today we'll be discussing quite a lot, talking about the scope and distribution of vegetables and fruits grown in Nigeria with reference to climate and soil. And we'll also be discussing the climatic factors that cause this distribution. And the major climatic factors we'll be talking about are the rainfall, temperature, and light. We'll also discuss the soil factors that affect this process, and we'll be talking about the biotic factors as well. Also, we'll try and group the groups of light duration that we have. We'll talk about humidity, and we'll also discuss the role of distribution of vegetables and fruits grown in Nigeria with reference to climate and soil. This lesson promises to be an interesting one, and I hope that you will enjoy it as well. Thank you, and God bless. Like I said in the previous slide, you're welcome to the second topic in the series of CRP 304, Principles of Horticultural Crops. I haven't changed. I still remain your facilitator, Alawudi Yetunde, and my email is on the screen. Right now, we'll be talking about the scope and distribution of vegetables and fruits grown in Nigeria with reference to climate and soil. How are fruits and vegetables being distributed across the country with reference to the climatic factors and the soil factors? Before we go ahead, it's important to note that the success of any crop production is dependent upon the environment. And when we talk about the environment, we have the climatic part of the environment, talking about the rain, sunshine, temperature, day length, and so on and so forth, humidity, name it. And we also have the edaphic factors, which is the soil factor. And finally, we have the biotic factors, which determine distribution of horticultural crops in Nigeria and the world in general. Going on to the climatic factors is just talking about the average weather condition of a particular place over a long period of time, saying 35 to 40 years. And the factors include rainfall, temperature, and light. Those are the factors we'll be dwelling upon in this topic. Rainfall is the most important means of water supply to plants, and every plant is is dependent upon rainfall for the fresh weight because it contains plants contain like 70 to 80% of water. For the woody plants, we have 50% of water in their fresh weight, and water acts as a medium for uptake of nutrients and also acts as transportation of substances within the body. So what water does is that it carries nutrients from one place to another. It carries also substances within the plant body. And also water is required to replace the one that is lost by transpiration, which is the loss of water from the plant through the leaf surfaces or the plant surfaces. So the one that is lost has to be replenished, and that is what water does. Still talking rainfall, it's a primary raw material in the process of photosynthesis, which involves the preparation of plant food, and it's also required for maintenance of turgor pressure in the plant stomata. That is the holes in the leaves that you cannot see, they are not visible to the eyes, and that is where gas exchange takes place. So lack of moisture or water, okay, makes the air less humid and makes um, drying very, very fast. So excessive moisture, because too much everything is bad, exposes the plants to diseases and also causes the plants to be weak. The stem will be weak, so they'll be falling off. That's what we call lodging, falling of plants. And also horticultural plants that are grown indoors, okay, sometimes we need a misty spray of water, kind of irrigation, just to keep the plant alive, okay, and increase the humidity of the plant environment. So that is important. Talking temperature now. Temperature is just the hotness or coldness of the plant environment. And it is important to note that most horticultural crops will grow and produce between a temperature of 15 degrees Celsius. And you can also classify these crops according to their temperature response. We have the hardy crops, which are plants, just like their name implies. They are quite hard. They can withstand low temperature, but cannot grow under very high temperature. So these are more of the temperate crops, crops that grow in cold environments. And we have examples of such crops like cabbage, we have the cauliflower, and the apple. These are plants that are quite hardy. And we also have another group that they call tender or tropical crops. And funny enough, these kind of crops withstand high temperature and can never ever tolerate the low kind of temperature. They are they perform wonderful well in the warm climates. And an example is the banana, you have your papaya. These are crops, horticultural crops that can withstand high temperature but can never ever tolerate the low temperature. Also, um, different plant parts respond to temperature differently. For example, in the flowers, when you see high temperature, when you have high temperature in flowers, they abort easily. So temperatures, high temperature is not suitable for flowers because they usually abort more easily. And however, the roots are more susceptible to low temperature than the upper part, which is the aerial part of the plant. Also, high temperature, especially at night, has adverse effects on the plants because the higher the temperature, the more the respiration and more energy is required by the plants, and before you know it, the plant will just start to dry up faster because they start to use up the food reserves, and at the end of the day, it's not even enough for the plant. They start to show all signs and all manner of stress signs. High temperature also prevents tuber initiation in crops that produce tubers like the potatoes and the carrots. That's for their root formation. So these are the effects of temperature on crops. We also have effects of temperature increases. Okay, high temperature actually causes increase in activities of pests and diseases. So the plants are more susceptible to pests and diseases when the temperature is high, and this is an adverse effect also. And also, it has adverse effect on the fruiting and flowering of the plants. Like for example, in tomatoes, high temperature reduces the number of flowers. Like I said, they cause flowers to abort easily. So it reduces the number of flowers and fruits that are formed because the flower is the one that eventually becomes the fruit. So if you have more flowers, you have more fruits, and vice versa. It has also been shown that the maximum fruit formation will require a night temperature of 21 degrees Celsius. Wow, that's important to note. And low temperature is also not a good thing. It's undesirable because it causes reduction in germination, it slows growth, and it also reduces fruit. It results in fruit damage. After talking temperature and rainfall, the next thing we'll be talking about, which is also an important climatic factor, is light. And light for plant growth comes primarily from the sun. Of course, there are other means that you can get it, artificially for the indoor plants. You can put on your light bulbs and that, but the primary source of light is the sun. And the role of light in a plant group cannot be overemphasized because it depends on the plant quality, the quantity, and the duration. So plants usually depend on the quality of light, the quantity of light, and the light duration for their growth and other development. So the most readily recognized role of plants is in photosynthesis because they need light energy to be able to make their food, and also in the formation of seed and germination, light is also required. What are the aspects of light? We have three aspects of light, like I said previously: the quality, the intensity, and the duration. So when we are talking about the quality of light, we are referring to the wavelength of the light. So this is the aspect that is affected by the cloud cover. When you look into the sky, you see a lot of clouds, then you know that that cloud will prevent light from being made accessible to plants. So that's talking about the quantity. And when there's continuous cloud cover, the quality of the light reduces, and you can also see the effect in the poor fruit color. And the visible light ranges between 390 to 735 nanometer wavelengths, and most of the radiation reaching the earth from the sun, because the sun is the primary source of energy. Okay, so most of that uh, light that comes from the sun falls within this range. Talking light intensity here, we are referring to the quality of light or the quanta of the light. Okay, so some plants grow under full sunlight. We have plants like the maize, tomatoes, they love the light. Okay, intensity of light, the heat. Okay, while some crops do not like too much heat, like we have the asparagus, they don't do well under bright light, they love the shade. So this is also important in your horticultural crop production. You have to know the kind of crops that are sun loving and the ones that are shade loving. So over here we have a chart saying what light intensity is all about. Here you can see the bullets here are not really clear. We have the clear sky, we have the cloudy sky. Here in the chart you can see it. This data is from Delhi, and you can see the intensity measured in hours, okay, of sunlight. The third aspect is talking about the duration of light, and this refers to the number of hours. We are talking duration here, so we are talking number of hours of light received by the plants. So based on this duration, plants can be classified into three groups based on plant the duration. Have the long day plants, and these plants usually um, require 14 hours of sunlight. Example is the onion. We have the short day plants, which require less than 10 hours of sunlight. And we have the neutral day plants, which most of the plants belong to. And this require like 12 hours of sunlight. So we have examples of tomato and maize in the day neutral plant. So you can see the hour of sunlight here in the chart, and 14 hours less or more. The long day plants fall under the 14-hour um, regime, while the others fall on either side. So these are the groups of light duration. Also, another climatic factor is the humidity, and this is talking about how heavy the air is. Okay, the water content that is in the air, that is what humidity is called, and it is usually measured in the units of relative humidity by an instrument that is called the psychrometer. And humidity depends on vapor pressure, okay, concentration of water in the air, that is vapor, and temperature. So relative humidity decreases when temperature increases. So when the weather is hot, then the air is less humid. Okay, when the weather is hot, it of course it absorbs anything water, so the air is less humid. And when the temperature is low, then you can see mist, you can see all this humidity. The air will be quite heavy. So high humidity, however, has a disadvantage because it encourages the growth of pests and diseases. So that is why humidity is very important in crops, in crop production. As a means of class activity, the first class activity is that I would like you to highlight the climatic factors affecting horticultural crop production and explain any three of these factors. Explain any three of the factors highlighted above. I'll just give you 10 seconds to quickly do that. Okay, moving on. We talked about the factors affecting crop production. We talked about the climatic factors, and the other factor, which is the soil factor. So soil, you know, is a medium of plant growth. That is where your plant roots, that's where they develop, that's where the plant grows. And the dynamic process of soil formation, how soil is formed, is through the process that is called weathering. So type of soil form, however, affects the kind of vegetation. We have the loamy soil, we have the sand soil, we have the silts, we have different types of soil. So depending on the kind of vegetation that it supports, and this also further impacts on the process of soil formation, okay, by influencing organic matter content and the nutrient content of the soil. Soil is very important. It has different forms of roles, and the first one is that it provides support. Like I said, that is where the roots will develop. When a seed is planted and it starts to germinate from under the roots, they find their space in the soil. So it starts as a source of support for the plant and also a source of nutrients and moisture for growing plants. So in terms of nutrition, soils can either be fertile, marginal, or infertile. Fertile for the very, very good soils, marginal, partially spent, partially fertile, and the infertile soils are the kind of soils that plants do very, very minimally in. So also, soil should be at least capable of holding water and nutrients for some time. It shouldn't be easily drained like the sandy soil. When you pour water in it, it is easily drained. That's not the kind of soil you want for your horticultural crop production. You want soil that should be able to hold water for some time and nutrients also. And if this you can't find this kind of soil, why not? You can also provide supplementary nutrition for the plant growth. So what you do is that you augment the soil with the nutrient that is required at that particular time in form of fertilizer, organic matter, all manner of forms. So that is how you can improve the soil. Now another form of the third one we'll be talking about is the biotic factors. After talking about the climatic and the soil factors, we want to know the living organisms that are inside the soil. So biotics just stands for life, living organisms, and they could either be disease or they could even affect the soil positively. you know. So climate influences plant diseases. Yes, if the climate is fine, then you see a lot of diseases and plants. And if the climate is not so good, if it is dry, everywhere is dry, then you see that these pests and diseases also do not exist. So for a disease condition to occur, then there must be a susceptible host, which is usually the plant, and a pathogen, which is the disease causing organism. It could be virus, it could be bacteria, it could be fungi, and also a favorable environment for it to it could be the soil. So this is what makes the disease triangle. A disease cannot just operate on its own if it doesn't have a host or pathogen, or the environment to which it will thrive. So diseases will not occur until all these three factors are present. It's important to note that. How are vegetables and fruits distributed within Nigeria? Nigeria is blessed and it's a very large area with different forms of climatic um, and edaphic differences. So as you move up to the northern part, you have less of rainfall, less of disease activities, less of and more of temperature. So there are certain crops that can grow in that kind of region. Coming down south, you have higher humidity, higher diseases and pests, and then lower temperatures. So there are certain crops that can also thrive there. So we want to check how this distribution works. The variation of temperature increases as you get to the inland. Yes. For example, the maximum temperature in the south is 30 degrees centigrade, the maximum annual temperature, while the minimum is 22 degrees Celsius. And in another part of the country, we have the maximum annual temperature as 19 degrees Celsius. So during the cool season, temperatures are lower in the north, and that's the best time to plant your vegetables. You plant your cabbages, you plant your lettuces, you plant your cucumbers. That is just the best time to plant. So in regards to humidity, the south is usually relatively humid throughout the year, while the north is drier. So you balance this out. There are certain crops that can grow in the south. You're talking about your green vegetables, your amaranth, your celosia, cocoros. They do better in this season. So apparently there are two distinct zones. We have the southern zone or the forest zone, and where the rainfall is like 1,500 to 3,000 millimeters. Temperatures are relatively high and favors tropical tree fruits like the bananas, pineapples, vegetables, and other crops like cassava and yams. So the major disadvantage of this zone is that the rainfall is high, temperature is high, so it encourages disease conditions. Now, the other one is the savanna zone, which is more adaptable to horticultural plants like your carrots, your lettuce, cabbages are grown during the short harmattan period in the north, and it does very well, even though there's no water, but you can practice irrigation. It comes out very, very well and wonderful. So these are the two zones that exist. So as a means of the second class activity, how does soil affect crop production? And what roles do biotic factors play in horticultural crop production? And how are fruits and vegetables distributed in Nigeria? I'll give you 10 seconds to think about that. So we have come to the end of today's class, and I hope it was quite enlightening and encouraging. And I wish that we'll meet again same time next week. Thank you and God bless.